Who is Majin Buu? Now, for years, there's been different backstories for Majin Buu. Of course, at one point, we thought he was the creation of Bibbidi, but then later on, it was stated that Majin Buu been around since the beginning of time, and that pretty much Bibbidi can only conjure him up, which Toriyama gave this in an interview. But later now, it's been retconned again in Dragon Ball Daima by us finding out that Marble was actually the creator of Majin Buu for Bibbidi. And pretty much he originated in the demon realm, and eventually I guess Bibbidi took him to the outside universe where we have the current timeline, and was wreaking havoc until he was sealed up eventually by Bibbidi, and eventually re-unsealed by Bobbidi, which is the son of Bibbidi. Now, Majin Buu, we're going to go to different variations and start referring them to their different variants. We have Kid Buu, who is the original form of Majin Buu. Then we have Fat Buu, and then we have Super Buu, and Super Buu and all his different absorptions that he have gotten. So the thing is, specifically, we're going to be talking about Fat Buu here in this video. Even though it's who is Majin Buu, we're going to be talking about specifically of who is Fat Buu, and a lot of discrepancies that's been going on through the fandom, because people always wondered when all the absorptions was removed from Super Buu's body, why did he revert back to Kid Buu instead of reverting to Evil Buu, which is the Gray Buu who fought Fat Buu and was absorbed and end up becoming Super Buu. So the thing is, here we have Kid Buu. Kid Buu, he first became Fat Buu after his battle in the world of the Kais, where he was fighting the different Supreme Kais, and he ended up killing 2 of them, and he ended up absorbing the Southern Supreme Kai, who was the strong one. At this point, he became the Buff Buu. Now, I'm not sure if it's a Southern, but you get the picture. But at this point, he became the Buff Buu that he was in his Kid Buu form, but way buffer. He fought against the Grand Supreme Kai, who was giving him trouble, and he ended up absorbing the Grand Supreme Kai. But something happened very different. At this point, he turned into what we know as Fat Buu. And at this point, he became more childlike, in a sense of not like how Kid Buu is like a kid who's just with behavior problems, but pretty much at this point, he became more of like an innocent baby who could be easily manipulated. And at this point, Bobbidi was pretty much the one that released him later on and had to deal with his childlike nature, where after Goku fought against him, Goku was able to pretty much put the idea in his head that he didn't need Bobbidi anymore and didn't have to be afraid, because he was much more stronger than Bobbidi. And Bobbidi and Bibbidi always had the control over Buu because they knew how to seal him up, and that's what he was afraid of. So even though they had a higher power level, they always had something that can pretty much keep him in line by that. So at this point, Buu does eventually turn on Bobbidi and kills him. Now, the thing is, he becomes friends with Hercule at this point. And the thing is, Hercule's appealing to that good side. See, the thing is, when the Grand Supreme Kai was absorbed by Kid Buu, he pretty much brought a certain purity to Kid Buu, because Kid Buu was pure evil. And at this point, he kind of brought a certain innocence to him. And at this point, those 2 things started to collide internally with Majin Buu. And it's kind of similar to the Nameless Namekian, who's trying to dispel all the evil. This is kind of like what we end up seeing happen with Fat Buu. He dispels all the evil, and it forms into Evil Buu, which is the Gray Buu. They look exactly the same, but people got to realize this, that Evil Buu is essentially what Kid Buu is, in a sense. And this is the separation that causes at this point that the entity of what the Grand Supreme Kai was, of all that goodness that he brought to Buu, is pretty much stayed as Fat Buu. But now Fat Buu has dispelled the evil out of himself, so he doesn't have that evil within that he's battling with. So now is on the external side. But the problem is, the Evil Buu took all the power with him, which is why he was stronger than Fat Buu at this point, and pretty much was able to overpower him and absorb him. Now, with him absorbing him, he's able to fully tap into the power that he gained from the Grand Supreme Kai and those absorptions from the Southern Supreme Kai and make it into his own, creating a new mutation which ended up transforming him into Super Buu, which is now he's a lot more intelligent, more controlled. He's not reckless like Kid Buu, but he's also not depowered like Fat Buu is. So he's pretty much the perfect Buu at this point. And he definitely showcased this by doing different things like wiping out majority of everybody on the planet, which definitely at the time made Super Buu look very dangerous by him being able to sense everyone and try to do, an extinction at this point to everyone on the planet. Now, later on, he ends up absorbing Piccolo and Gotenks and then Gohan and becoming different variants of Super Buu. Now, at this point, Vegito gets himself absorbed on purpose so he can remove and save everybody, and which he does. But the thing is, they notice Fat Buu inside Super Buu's body, and once they remove that, a chain reaction starts to happen. And he was trying to plead with them before Vegeta and them ripped from his body, because he was saying he won't be who he is, and which is true. He will lose all the essence of like pretty much having any type of sense really, and just becoming a mindless, chaotic being. And that's exactly what happens. By them removing Fat Buu from his body, he doesn't revert back to Evil Buu, because like I said before, Evil Buu and Fat Buu are one and the same. He was just pretty much just the evil all amalgamated and all the stuff of what Kid Buu was. But he wasn't exactly like a true form of Buu. It was just really like an internal battle that was happening externally pretty much at this point. So now, by him removing that, he loses everything, because pretty much you could say Fat Buu was the combination of the Kais, like the buff Buu that he was. That's why he kind of briefly turned into the buff Buu, but he reverted back, which was like, in a sense, he kind of digested that power and lost it, and his body just went back to his original form, which is Kid Buu, because he has nothing in it, where Fat Buu is kind of like the body of the Grand Supreme Kai that was in his body. So that's the reason Buu ends up losing everything and just goes back to his original form at this point. And now we have two Buus. We have Kid Buu and we have Fat Buu. And Fat Buu is pretty much, in a sense, is almost like a different version of the Grand Supreme Kai mixed with Buu. It's a different entity, but kind of the same a little bit. Now, the thing is, the only problem, Kid Buu keeps a lot of that power. But even later on, as we see in Dragon Ball Super during the Moral arc, and things are speaking about the God Key power that was left with Kid Buu. Kid Buu did not know how to tap into these things. So there's definitely a lot more power there on Kid Buu's side compared to what was left with Fat Buu. But this is how we got these different Buus, and later on, Kid Buu was destroyed and reincarnated as Oob. So this is who Majin Buu is.